Bula, Fiji, and hello everybody around the world who's watching as we have two cyclones on the map. One that has just downgraded, but still affecting the Northern Territory of Australia, slipping in to the western portion now, even with some strong rain. And then there's Cody that will soon be brushing by New Zealand. Rough seas and some high winds, but not as much rain as we saw in Fiji. What is bummer with Fiji right now is they're already covered in water. There's a lot of flooding from Tropical Cyclone Cody that formed right nearby, and another one that will likely form in just another week. So I'm going to be focusing on this tropical cyclone. It's about 5 days away from forming, and I'll get into the very minute details of where this thing will be moving. First, I'm going to play out the model and show you what I believe will occur near New Zealand is very similar to what this model is showing. These are wind gusts we're looking at right now. Once it gets any white on the map, that's more than 100 km/h winds. And notice with these tropical cyclones, once they get strong, this particular model on windy, I'm using the European. You can change them to different models. This one tends to be the most accurate when I select wind gusts. And that's for data, not necessarily for a forecast this far out. So you can track down here with the time of day. In that part of the world, it's a little like a half a day ahead than this time setting. But they're showing that then that'd be Monday evening that New Zealand would have that landfall from Tropical Cyclone Cody. So whether or not that's going to be an actual direct landfall, I had been thinking that there would be more of a skim by here, but unfortunately, it does appear that there's going to be a more bigger impact because of some of the steering winds I'll show you in just a moment. And at that same time, another cyclone forming right near Fiji. So again, on that one, the model, this is days and days out. You can't take it all the way for accurate, but I can confidently say that there will be another very strong storm forming and that it will impact Fiji to some degree. So whether those are 85 km/h winds or if they reach up to 120, those are the kind of things I'll be looking at specifically here in this forecast. And then I will continue live loops on this Zoom Earth. I want to be clear about this specific product that it's in UTC time, which is Greenwich or Zulu. And so it again is going to be about half a day behind when you're looking at this timestamp, but you can see where I'm circling that it's UTC. So if you want to look up a converter for that, you can, or I'll just go ahead and I say that kind of thing at the beginning of the video when I'm live streaming this on YouTube so that there'll be no talking, but I'll zoom in on where the track is during landfall and continually refresh it and update it. Here for this one, see when I refresh it, it jumps up a notch right underneath the next forecasted value. And so they're not forecasting that it will be very strong. Of course, it's getting closer to cool water. That's a big killer for these storms. Another reason why I said it wasn't going to rain a lot in the future is because, again, it's getting toward cooler air, cooler water. Those are things that just kind of destroy these storms. So it will affect them, but not to the same degree that Fiji has been bothered, which is still getting rainfall, unfortunately. It is on the eastern portion of the islands. Main Fiji Island on the west side, which had most of the flooding, did get a clearing today. That was great. I had been having a lot of questions about that, and so I answer those questions on Facebook and Messenger. I invite people to come find me on Weather Woman, and that, here I post a lot of different products that you can see more updates than what I put out on YouTube, which my forecasts here, they're good to go and last for a week or so at least. So I'll just keep updating very local forecasting as we get closer. So again, this is what we're looking at for a chance on Saturday in Fiji, and that this tropical cyclone will form on Friday. So I am in agreement with that. And at this point, now that you've seen the gist of that, I want to dig a little deeper, and I'll also answer some questions and show those in a couple minutes here. that I got on Facebook. I invite people to put questions in the comment section. You'll just have to find my original post to do that for me to be able to see it. But I will show them and answer those specific questions here. And so in Messenger, I get more specific questions, and some people that actually book my time to give a very specialized forecast for different reasons, like farming, or maybe they have a business and they want to know if it's okay to let ships be moving from one location to another. There is a book now button on my Facebook tab, but everything else is free. I do these wide view forecasts and updates for landfalls as a service just to help people be best prepared far in advance. So what we're looking at now is tons of rain. This is the infrared satellite. The darker areas are a lot of moisture, taller cloud tops, meaning can be stronger storms and more torrential downpours. And then the whites, usually just clouds with no rain underneath. So we do see that Fiji is not getting a break in the clouds. I had forecast that maybe Sunday there could be a little bit of a break. And unfortunately, it'll come right after another cyclone. So it's not the best best thing here, but there will be a chance to dry out after that. And so what's happening is that a lot of the moisture in this region will get a little bit closer to Fiji and continue to feed in as this storm moves south. It will sort of drag some of this air behind because it's a very strong low pressure. It pulls air from pretty far away, and it will funnel in. And at the same time, up above, in closer to the equator, there's going to be a very strong jet as this pulls away and pulls air from here. There's going to be a strong upper level pull this way. Now that we're getting pulled down here from the south and getting pulled toward the north up here, that can cause a spinning. Call them tropical waves, technically speaking. So if you hear the meteorological service in Fiji speak about tropical waves, or anywhere around the world, that's what they mean. These tropical waves can form when we are getting a pull away, especially if there's two directions. That's just a double force mechanism. So that tells me, as someone who's trained in this and watches the patterns, that yes, there's a very good likelihood this will start to show little bits of signs of spinning only at certain levels closer to Vanuatu. Still a lot of rain for them, tons of rain for the Solomon Islands this whole time as well. So as that continues to spin up, it'll start to gain a cyclonic flow near the surface after, I would call it, maybe a couple days of that. So this pulls away. Then we're looking at about Thursday, Friday. We're in Thursday now, so by Friday, tomorrow, it'll be a little bit further and really start to get a lot of potential energy in this area. So we'll continue to see signs of that spinning. I'm going to change layers in the atmosphere and products. This is back to the wind speeds. And I'll go back to right now. So we're looking at Cody there. If I cruise up in the atmosphere, we'll notice there's still that big strong pull I was talking about. These brighter colors are stronger winds. And so that tells me again, at this level where a lot of the rain is, there is going to be all of that satellite moisture we saw in this area still going this direction. So yes, Fiji will continue to get a lot of rain, a little bit of a break just before that storm and just after the next storm. So up closer to the jet level, we call it, the upper level jets, I want to show you what I was talking about with this storm and having some impacts from what's near the equator, plus what is Cody right now pulling away. So I'll zoom in a little bit more on Fiji here. Here we go. I want to see those jets just a little bit. So Cody will get wrapped up in a polar jet. That's very likely. I do believe that once it gets pulled with more force and energy because of what's to its south on Friday, that it will cause that tropical wave. And that'll be initiated on the south side first. At that same time, there has been some energy feeding in from the other side of the equator. And so that'll continue to feed in and gain strength because of some deepening that's going on with this trough here, more technical terms. But to me, it does give me a confidence to say that there will be a double reason here for a spin up to be produced near Fiji starting on Friday, and then really showing signs of a cyclone at the surface level, technical cyclone in that case, by Saturday. So this far out, models are a little wishy-washy, but I do agree with that jet pattern that there's going to be a dip down and then the pull up. Now this would be considered a ridge. It will then allow this storm to hover near Fiji this is again not a cyclone yet, but there is that batch of moisture. This is the initiation process that I believe will happen. And it could be closer to here or right around. I'm more so personally forecasting that will be starting a little bit to the south of what this model is showing. So in that case, and that's at the ground level, I'll go back to ground level on this model. It does show it a little bit to the north. Again, that rotation at the top level was here. Once it gets stacked, as we call it as meteorologists, and that eye wall and is all the way from the seafloor directly straight up to the sky, then it's stacked. But at this point, it's showing it's a little off. I believe it will be a little off, but a little more to the south. And so if it is more to the south, the impacts to Fiji will be less severe because as it's forming, it'll get out of the area faster. But right now, the model shows it forming a little bit more to the north. So you'll watch this. If it does end up forming to the north, it has more time to get stronger winds before making a direct landfall, according to this European model. Now, if it happens more to the south, just a little bit, as I believe, the direct impacts will be closer to what we just saw with the last storm, but not as severe as the wind speeds that we're seeing here, closer to 100 kilometers per hour. So time will tell on that one, but my forecast again is just that it will be a little bit more to the south. So I've put this back to now. I'm going to look at these steering winds, and this is what we call the steering winds. A lot of meteorologists, where these storms go is usually going to be toward things that are pulling it in one direction. So now this ridge here is starting to pull energy. You can see it feeding in at this level just lightly. That will, in the next couple of days, propel it faster to the east, which will cause that tropical wave spin up at this level in the atmosphere. And because there's going to be another jet level, let's call it a trough, that U shape that comes here along the jet level, that's going to cause an upper level spin in the atmosphere, and then they can collide near Fiji. So personally, with the data that I've been able to look at so far, I think that's going to have a direct impact on Fiji. And there's a good chance there could be a actual landfall in Fiji with this one. So I'll keep updating here just exactly how strong those winds will be. But right now I would forecast there will be 100-kilometer-per-hour winds across Fiji with continued rain, unfortunately. I really hate to have to add that in there on top of all the rain that is there. But as far as this forecast model goes, by Friday, it does show a landfall a little bit more north of where I would be expecting it to happen. So I'll keep just reviewing data. My big problem here, I do use certain tools to help me make these forecasts, and it's usually going to be data, not the model. So here is data that I can look at from ospo.noaa.gov. That's an American-based government company here that I can get high resolution data for sea surface temperatures around the world. And it's a tool that I use for forecasting because these storms like to follow warm water. And so when I want to get a direction, first of all, they have to be in 26 degrees Celsius or more. So that's going to happen around these orange values. And then once we hit that temperature, then cyclone formation, tropical cyclone formation can occur. So this area here is pretty warm, and it is a little warmer toward Fiji and also near Vanuatu. So if we get the moisture that I was talking about and showing and the tropical wave, then it is prime time for it to occur here. There's not a lot of wind shear. That's something that would destroy a storm, but there's not really any here to see right now. So there's just a good likelihood that there could be, a landfall coming up next weekend. Again, it won't be the worst of the worst. There have been worse storms that pass. So if we can prepare properly right now, then that will be the best case scenario. To know that the northern portions of the islands again will be facing the stronger winds tells us that by being on these southern shores, you could have a little safer bet. If you're next to terrain, like up a slope on a mountainside, especially on the northern portion, I would be a little more hesitant to stay there overnight. You'd have to at least know that to be totally safe, you're not near any kind of trees or power lines that might fall on your home. And so in some of those cases, some people might want to stay on other parts of the island as this passes. So that's my big push for sharing this information now so that people don't end up traveling and commuting on Saturday and being in heavy downpours again with the high wind. There's going to be an increased possibility for trees to get uprooted and for power lines to fall over if they're in the places that are already soaked. So the ground is wet, that mud, that dirt underneath can get really soft and move more easily. So once we get more and more rain, all of this is coming toward Fiji eventually. There'll be a little break, but not long, not enough to dry out the flooded streets yet. So after that, unfortunately, there will be the chance that things are blocking roadways. With that super soft ground, if there's going to be heavy winds, let's say 100 kilometers per hour, it can knock over things more easily than what you would normally see because it's already wet and soft. Things fall over more easily in the wind. So that's going to be probably just something that I think people should be more aware of is a worse threat with this next cyclone than it was with Cody. That when there are the winds, it might show signs of doing more damage with knocking things over and pushing things out of the ground with this second storm with the same wind speeds. So a very similar situation here as last week. I don't think there will be quite as much rain, at least the break afterward. I would forecast right now to be a little bit better, a little bit longer, perhaps even like more sunshine right after this storm passes, let's say about Monday. And so, yeah, just preparing the best you can, knowing where your local shelters are is a good idea. And if you're on particular zones that have already been covered in water, finding a way to get away from areas that you won't be able to pass through, or I guess in some cases, if your house is somewhere that is safe to stay in, just know that you might want to stock up on some supplies and be able to stay inside for another week or so until some of this flooding is gone. I'll go ahead and give you an idea of what I mean with that flooding. On my Facebook page, I share this information. So things can wash away. Like you can have a road and maybe they have built some, structures for the roads, but it's easier for these things to collapse underneath when it's already so wet. And so some of these trees, if it's so soaking wet and then the wind blows, it will just fall right over the road more easily with this next storm than they did with Cody. So there's a lot of these pictures still coming to me. People now finally trying to drive places and driving through flooded areas, but it's not, the best idea. So it all depends, truly also. Like, is your vehicle high enough to get through that water? You don't want this to end up in your exhaust pipe and backflow the air that should be coming out of the motor. That can make your car stop in the middle of the road. So whatever precautions are needed, you take them. The Fiji Roads Authority has been a nice source here, particularly with quick updates and letting people know where they can drive and where they can't drive. So I would recommend looking at this sort of information before you go out and checking the radar, the weather radar in particular. So here we go. Luckily, some dryness for the main Fiji island today, where all of that flooding was mostly on the west end, but really the flooding came all the way around into low-lying areas, and this is going to be a repeat next weekend. So I'll get into the questions that I had now on my Facebook page. I had let people know here that I would be forecasting live. And so here, there are comments with questions. Thanks for the update. It's been raining here with lightning and thunder. Savu Savu, that's in Levu. So yeah, the lightning, by the way, I shared about in other stories, has to do with space weather as well. We can get charged particles. I'm studying space weather, so I'll go to the Space Weather Prediction Center, an entity of NOAA, an American government situation here, administration. So they've had some C-class flares show up via our satellite data instruments. Those are not the biggest ones. We've had some N-class flares, and it has been noted with brand new studies, because we just started looking at this sort of information, that when we have these larger flares or solar storms, oh my gosh, there's a solar storm. I'm just seeing this for the first time. Okay, so when we get these, oh wow, that gave like almost a halo. This is telling me, from what I've learned with space weather forecasting, we will very likely have a storm coming toward us. Now, that is either coming toward us or going away from us. There's different imagery I can look at, but this will cause more lightning. Some of these flares will cause more lightning, and that lasts for about 45 days afterwards. Because I saw that, I'm interested to go to the Solar Dynamics Observatory website and catch whether or not that solar storm ejected from the front side, what we're looking at here, would be coming toward Earth, or if that solar storm erupted from the far side. And in that case, probably would not affect Earth. I know these were strong sunspots here. I can see that those flares that affected Earth did come from here. There's the solar storm. It was this player. Okay, so this sunspot has been something that was active on the far side, shooting off. Oh, wow, look how what it did to the satellite. So as those particles leave here, these bands of plasma and magnetic field lines, we can see them through different wavelengths. When they eject like that, it sends plasma toward Earth and will give us geomagnetic storms. So we'll see some yellows and maybe even K4 above, which would be geomagnetic storm levels. Then that adds to the lightning and can also disrupt some satellite communications, GPS, like how we saw that satellite in space shake and wiggle. It can actually send so many particles, tiny, tiny energetic particles, through the wires and push signals away. So perhaps that satellite is sending things back down to Earth. In that case, it can push the signal coming to Earth away because it's so strong. So lightning is going to continue. That's what I wanted to see. Lightning and thunder will again then be a bigger threat with the next storm coming. It has also been noted that those storms give us more clouds. So that then is another level for moisture, which is another threat for cyclonic formation. So this is another reason why this could be a little bit stronger than what the models are showing, unfortunately. That would then, in my case, say that the gust could be up to 140 kilometers, especially on the north sides of the islands, a little stronger than Cody. So here we have a thank you of Vinaka to you too. I've enjoyed how kind everybody in Fiji has been. Feroz Khan has sent me some incredible photos. He's now here updating about Friday. He was asking, is this what I was talking about? And yeah, it is. Did I reply? No, I did not. Strong one coming through Fiji if no change on route. I am in a live now sharing the impacts. I'll share the link on this page in a formal post when I finish. So next week, another developing in the north, and we'll be directly on Fiji. Okay, yes, also in agreement with that right now. Thanks for the updates. And if there's any more questions, I'll answer them. And always know you can ask me more questions here if you have any, or in the comment section of this video. I see that I don't have any right now, so I'll pop back into looking at this solar storm in another wavelength. Satellite disruption. So I'll see how much filament left the sun by looking at 304 angstroms, which appears as red. Those are units for the wavelength. And now in this case, I can see plasma rather than other bits of light, different particles. So some show the photons. We saw the bright photon ejection with some flaring, solar flaring. Then it will be a solar storm with plasma ejection. So there was some on the backside, and now there's that filament ejection. So yeah, that's coming toward, well, here, it would be coming toward Earth. Some of this will affect Earth, some of it will not. The bulk of this material will follow magnetic field lines that end up spinning away this way, away from Earth. Once, if this particular sunspot continues being strong, in about 7 days, 5 days, it'll be where this one is. And in that case, if it ejects material and follows those magnetic field lines, that part of the storm itself will be coming this way. If you can imagine, Earth is the computer where you are, and the computer screen is where the sun is. It'll come toward us. Whereas here, it's really the bulk of this material will go away from us. So it does tell us this is an active player. At least it let go some. It let go of some of the material before it got close to us. If this happens when it is closer to us, oh wow, there's a deep channel here. Yeah, this thing's strong. So if this does happen, it can give us aurora. That's beautiful, northern lights, southern lights. But it can also like mess up our GPS a little bit. There might be outages. You might like have some issues with communications on radio waves, and not necessarily all of the bands, but the ones that people use like ham radio is a little bit more stable. But other like amateur radio operators could have bigger issues, even into the high frequency bands when it's something that big for some hours. And so normally that information will be posted here, but they're not always the only source. There's other people like my professor Tamitha Skov on YouTube, who is Space Weather Woman. She will be excited to share about this and the impacts, because I can see that some of it was so big, there is going to be a shock wave and some blast with extra material that does come out this direction toward Earth as well. That's based on this coronagraph, where the sun is inside this white circle, and this is all blocked out light so that we have a better view and are able to see this light coming toward Earth instead of it being blown out by the sun's light. So this makes it easier for us to imagine where this material will be going, so that will affect Earth to some degree. Little bits of geomagnetic storming possible and aurora possible. I'm curious if they put it in their forecast. So I'll go ahead and update this information specifically on my Facebook Facebook group, Space and Earth Weather. And I'll just keep sharing updates here when there's impacts to us here on Earth especially. Otherwise, there's space weather all the time, and I don't always share about it. But when it's coming toward us, I will. I am getting certified in space weather broadcast right now. It's a brand new program that Tamitha Skov started, the Space Weather Woman. I saw her videos online. I was so interested because I noticed connections between space weather and Earth weather. So now I'm looking at the direct effects. So because of this, I do believe that the cyclones will be stronger, forming in the South Pacific. I'll keep updating this probably once a day, sometimes every other day, just depending on my own personal schedule. But before I close up here, just going to play out this model. I'll make a copy of this live stream to just focus on the space weather portion and be sharing that in some different sources too, including that Facebook group, Space and Earth Weather. So whatever this model shows right now, a lot of them do not take space weather into account. I can tell you right off the bat, there'll be extra lightning and there will be more cloud cover than what models are suggesting. That can increase the strength of a cyclone. So with the wind gusts here that are going to be creeping in near Fiji, showing this next cyclone, it could be a little stronger. Impacts to New Zealand could be a little bit stronger with Cody. It is moving toward cooler water. So you see over land, it very quickly decreases with the wind strength. And so that's very good news that it's not going to be very strong for New Zealand. But this next batch of storming will probably be even stronger than what any of the models are showing right now. based on what just happened with that solar ejecta. For anybody who's interested too, there's a files section on that Facebook group where I share different studies because they can be kind of hard to find. They are brand new. The things linking increased cloud condensation nuclei to galactic rays, galactic particles or solar particles. So when they inundate Earth, like if that solar storm passes, it could very well be more clouds than what would be projected right now based on other forecasting tools. And again, I'll say I think this is going to be forming a little bit more over here, but just to give an idea and a good visual, there will be stronger gusts than what this is showing. 100, 120 kilometers per hour, mostly to the northern portions. This model shows the crossover of land being this island, not the main island of Fiji, but to the west, the next largest. Now, I think that it could very well be Vitulavu that gets the main direct landfall here. That would be my personal forecast right now. And within the next couple of days, let's see, right now it's Thursday. Again, this is a time zone here showing that I can't change. I haven't been able to edit this and show Fiji's local time, but I'm about 15 hours behind them. So it's really Thursday afternoon there, even though it's showing Wednesday. So this Thursday afternoon, in a few days, by let's say Saturday, I can do an update where I'll actually be able to see exactly how these jets are forming. There's some temperature and it's technical stuff I haven't been able to find. They're called height rises and height falls. Have not been able to find actual data for that in this part of the world. So if you do know that sort of thing, please share with me, put it in the comments. It's something I use in the United States in order to tell me if ridges or troughs are going to get bigger or smaller. So by this point, I'll be able to have a better idea of how this storm will form. So that's going to still be about six days ahead of time. So keep watching and checking back for something a little more fine-tuned with a direct landfall in the next few days from me. At this point, there's a lot of variables I just can't fill in the pieces for, looking for extra data. And so for anybody that might be able to share this data with me for that part of the world, please do. I'll show you what I mean by that. Oh, wrong thing. So this is a college in the United States that puts up a lot of weather maps. And it's a great resource that I use when I'm working on the United States. And I just haven't been able to find this information in the Southern Hemisphere. For whatever reason, it's not working now. Weather.cod.edu, come to life. All right, not going to cooperate, but height rises, height falls. That does a lot with my long range forecasting and something that I'm looking for. So please share if you have any info. And I'll check again, see if there's any questions. It's pretty early in Fiji, nothing here right now. So that's a wrap for this one.